On the night of October 31st, 2001, 21-year-old Cindy Song, a senior at Pennsylvania State University, attended a Halloween party at Players Nightclub in State College, Pennsylvania. Dressed in a bunny costume, she left the club around 2 a.m. with friends Stacy Paik and Lisa Kim. The trio visited another friend's apartment, playing video games until approximately 4 a.m., when Cindy was dropped off at her residence in the State College Park Apartments on West Clinton Avenue. This was the last confirmed sighting of her. When Cindy failed to contact anyone by November 4th, her friends reported her missing. Investigators found her apartment door locked with no signs of forced entry or struggle. Inside, they discovered her backpack, cell phone, and the false eyelashes she had worn that night. Notably absent were her keys and purse, which contained her driver's license and credit cards. There was no activity on her credit cards, and her cell phone hadn't been used since her disappearance. Authorities surmised she might have left her apartment voluntarily, possibly to visit a nearby 24-hour convenience store, which her friends said was a habit of hers. A few days after Cindy's disappearance, a witness in Philadelphia's Chinatown district, nearly 200 miles away, reported seeing a woman matching Cindy's description being forced into a vehicle. The woman was reportedly crying for help, but an unidentified man intervened, telling the witness to leave. Despite a composite sketch and public appeals, neither the man nor the woman was identified, and the lead didn't yield further information. In 2003, the case took a turn when authorities investigated Hugo Selensky, a bank robber and suspected serial slayer from Luzerne County, Pennsylvania. An informant claimed that Selensky and his accomplice, Michael Kurkowski, had abducted a woman matching Cindy's description. However, while searches of Selensky's property uncovered multiple human remains, none of these were identified as Cindy's. Cindy's family, who traveled from South Korea to aid in the search, inadvertently cleaned her apartment shortly after the initial police investigation, potentially destroying valuable evidence. However, it's important to note that the police had already conducted a search of the premises, lessening this possibility. Over the years, various theories have emerged, including the possibility of Cindy being abducted by someone she knew or falling victim to a random act of violence. Despite extensive investigations, searches, and public appeals, Cindy Song's fate remains unknown, and her case is still unsolved. If you have any information regarding the disappearance of Cindy Song, please contact the Ferguson Township Police Department. Idlewild, a small mountain community in Riverside County, California, has been the focal point of several mysterious disappearances in recent years. Between March and August 2020, 6 individuals vanished in and around the Idlewild Pine Cove area, prompting extensive investigations by the Riverside County Sheriff's Department. On July 7, 2020, 73-year-old Rosario Garcia left her Hemet home and was reported missing later that day. Her silver Nissan Altima was discovered abandoned, stuck on a boulder along a steep dirt road near Highway 74 in Pinyon Pines, close to Idlewild. Despite extensive searches by deputies, family members, and community volunteers, no further traces of Garcia have been found. Garcia suffers from dementia, and her family believes she couldn't have driven to that location on her own. Melissa Lane, 41, was last seen on June 15, 2020, after exiting a relative's vehicle near the trailhead to Black Mountain Truck Trail, 8 miles north of Idlewild. Her mother reported her missing on July 4, 2020. Lane's family has expressed concerns about her safety, noting that she often hitchhiked in the area. Lydia Abrams, 65, was last seen on June 6, 2020, at her 117-acre ranch in Apple Canyon, east of Idlewild. Search efforts on her property yielded no signs of her whereabouts. Abrams's disappearance has been the subject of ongoing investigations, including searches with cadaver dogs that have alerted to potential evidence. On March 4th, 2020, 52-year-old Roy Profogel left his Idlewild home for a hike and was last seen at the Pine Cove Market around 6:30 p.m. His backpack was later found on a nearby trail, but despite multiple search efforts, Profogel remains missing. His family continues to seek answers regarding his disappearance. Vanessa Vlasek, 27, was reported missing on July 31, 2020, by her sister, who hadn't spoken to her since March. Vlasek was last known to be in the Idlewild area. She was later located safely, though details of her discovery have not been publicly disclosed. On July 22, 2020, 30-year-old Jade Kemmerer checked out of the Bluebird Cottage Inn in Idlewild and was last seen driving her white Kia Optima. She was reported missing after failing to contact her family. Kemmerer was subsequently found safe, but once again the specific circumstances surrounding her disappearance and recovery have not been released. Community members have expressed concerns about the number of disappearances in such a short period. Some families believe there may be connections between the cases, though authorities have not confirmed any links. The lack of information has led to speculation and heightened anxiety among residents, which some believe may have sparked a mass hysteria event in the region. As of November 2024, the cases of Rosario Garcia, Melissa Lane, Lydia Abrams, and Roy Profogel remain open. If you have any information regarding any of these disappearances, please contact the Riverside Police Department with details. On September 23, 2012, authorities in Wilkes County, Georgia, discovered the body of 35-year-old Jeffrey Gebhardt in a remote area of the Clarks Hill, a wildlife management area. Also, for brevity, I'm going to be referring to this area as Clarks Hill WMA from now on. Gebhardt, an experienced hunter from Blairsville, Georgia, had been participating in a special 3-day deer hunt at the 13,000-acre WMA, which required prior registration and planning. Gebhardt and a friend, whose identity has not been publicly disclosed, arrived at the Holiday Park campground on September 20th, 2012, to commence their hunting trip. The following day, they ventured into the woods together but became separated. Gebhardt managed to find his way back to camp that evening, reportedly with the assistance of another hunter who gave him a ride back to the campground parking lot. On September 22, 2012, the second day of their trip, Gebhardt and his friend once again entered the woods for hunting. They became separated, and as night fell, Gebhardt did not return to camp. His friend contacted the Wilkes County Sheriff's Office at approximately 10:12 p.m. to report him missing. Simultaneously, Gebhardt made several calls to 911, stating he was lost in the Clarks Hill WMA. Due to poor cell reception, these calls were intermittent and dropped frequently. A search and rescue operation was launched, involving the Wilkes County Sheriff's Office, the Washington Fire Department, Georgia Department of Natural Resources Rangers, and other volunteers. They utilized flashlights, spotlights, police lights, and sirens in an attempt to signal Gebhardt. A Georgia State Patrol helicopter equipped with heat-seeking technology was deployed to assist in locating him. In the early hours of September 23, 2012, the helicopter detected a heat signature in a marshy area near Thurmond and Clarks Hill Lakes, which would have been submerged but for low water levels. Ground teams reached the location around 3 a.m. and found Gebhardt's body. He had sustained multiple stab wounds to his chest and torso. Investigators noted the absence of other footprints or signs of another person at the scene. An autopsy was conducted on September 24, 2012. The following day, authorities announced that Gebhardt's death was being investigated as a slaying. Wilkes County Sheriff Mark Moore stated, The investigation is continuing with evidence collected at the scene and with additional interviews. Despite the ongoing investigation, few details were released to the public. In October 2012, Sheriff Moore addressed concerns about public safety, stating, "The evidence at this time doesn't indicate that there is any Rambo-type killer running in the woods." And yes, in case you're wondering, this isn't me paraphrasing or sensationalizing the case. The sheriff actually came out and said that. I don't think any statement could instill less confidence that there wasn't an individual in the woods committing heinous acts. He added that investigators had interviewed numerous hunters in the area and believed they had spoken to everyone who had interacted with Gebhardt. By December 2012, Sheriff Moore indicated that the investigation was nearing a conclusion, stating, "We're close to coming to a conclusion in this case." However, he did not provide specific details about the findings, and there was no hint at what would come next. In August 2013, a grand jury reviewed the case and concluded that Gebhardt's death was an intentional self-ending incident. This ruling was based on the evidence presented, including the autopsy report and the circumstances surrounding his death. The decision was met with shock and disbelief by Gebhardt's family and friends, who questioned the plausibility of someone inflicting multiple stab wounds upon themselves. And just to drive the point home, Jeffrey was stabbed a total of 17 times. Despite the official ruling, questions and doubts persist among those who knew Gebhardt and from the public in general. The lack of clear answers and the unusual nature of his death continue to fuel speculation and concern within the community. Gebhardt's family has expressed dissatisfaction with the investigation's outcome and has questioned the thoroughness of the inquiry. Unfortunately, given the grand jury conclusion, the case has been closed and there's no ongoing investigation into this highly unusual death. His family has called for a reopening of the case and further investigation into the circumstances surrounding his death. Unfortunately, however, this has fallen onto deaf ears, so all that can be done now is to raise awareness about the highly unusual nature of this case. In the 16th century, European explorers and cartographers mistakenly believed that California was an island separate from mainland North America. This misconception persisted for over a century, influencing numerous maps and shaping European understanding of the region. The origin of this error can be traced back to the 1510 Spanish novel Las Sergas de Esplandian by García Rodríguez de Montalvo. The book described a mythical island named California, inhabited by Amazonian women and abundant in gold. When Spanish explorers encountered the Baja California Peninsula, they associated it with Montalvo's fictional island, leading to the belief that California was an island. In 1533, an expedition led by Fortun Ximénez reached the southern tip of Baja California. The explorers, influenced by Montalvo's novel, named the land California, reinforcing the island misconception. Subsequent expeditions, including those by Hernán Cortés, failed to dispel this belief. The first known map depicting California as an island was created by the Spanish cartographer Diego Gutiérrez in 1562. This portrayal gained traction, and by the early 17th century, many European maps featured California as an island. Notable cartographers like Gerardus Mercator and Abraham Ortelius adopted this depiction, further entrenching the error. In 1602, Sebastian Vizcaíno led an expedition along the California coast. Despite his detailed surveys, the island belief persisted even after. In 1622, the Dutch cartographer Hessel Gerrits published a map showing California as an island, once again solidifying the misconception in European cartography even after it had been proven wrong. The Jesuit missionary Eusebio Francisco Kino played a pivotal role in correcting this error. Between 1698 and 1701, Kino conducted overland expeditions across the region, demonstrating that California was a peninsula connected to the mainland. In 1705, he published a map titled Passage by Land to California, challenging the island depiction. Despite Kino's findings, the island portrayal persisted in European maps for several decades. It wasn't until 1747 that Ferdinand VI of Spain issued a royal decree declaring that California is not an island, leading to a gradual correction in cartographic representations. This was done after a Jesuit sailed around the Gulf of California and returned to the king to directly confirm that California is indeed not an island. Personally, I think this mystery can be firmly put in the solved category. However, some have argued that the Channel Islands off the coast of California could have been a source of this confusion. Given the size of these islands, I find this a little hard to believe. Valve Corporation, founded in 1996 by former Microsoft employees Gabe Newell, affectionately known as Gaben after his screen name, and Mike Harrington, has become a cornerstone of PC gaming. Their journey from a fledgling startup to one of the most dominant forces in gaming is complex, and given that the company is private, it's also led to a great mystery. Just how much is Valve worth? In the mid-90s, Newell and Harrington left Microsoft to pursue their passion for gaming. Their first project, Half-Life, released in 1998, was a groundbreaking first-person shooter that received critical acclaim for its immersive storytelling and innovative gameplay. This success established Valve as a significant player in the gaming world. Following Half-Life, Valve continued to innovate with titles like Team Fortress Classic and Counter-Strike, both of which began as community mods before being officially adopted by the company. These games not only expanded Valve's portfolio, but also fostered a strong community of players and modders. In 2003, Valve launched Steam, a digital distribution platform that transformed how games were delivered and played. Initially developed to streamline the patching process for Counter-Strike, Steam evolved into a comprehensive platform offering game distribution, multiplayer gaming, and social networking services. Steam generates revenue through several channels. Perhaps the most obvious is game sales. Valve takes a percentage of sales from games sold on the platform, with 30% being the average cut. By 2011, Steam controlled between 50% and 70% of the market for downloaded PC games, making it the most significant revenue source for Valve. Additionally, many games on Steam offer microtransactions, with Valve receiving a cut of these sales as well. And of course, I have to mention that Counter-Strike 2, a game developed by Valve, averages nearly 1 million concurrent players a day, with peak daily numbers nearing 1.5 million. Dota 2, another popular Valve game, also averages nearly 500,000 concurrent players daily. Despite its success, Valve remains a privately held company, and its financial details are a very closely guarded secret. This secrecy has led to much speculation about the company's true value. Various estimates have been made over the years, with recent estimates ranging from as little as $10 billion to as much as $60 billion. Gabe Newell is known to hold a significant portion of Valve's shares, with some reports suggesting he owns more than 50% of the company. This substantial ownership stake allows Newell to maintain control over the company's direction and operations. Anyway, the real mystery here is, of course, not the valuation of Valve, but rather why a company almost certainly worth in excess of $10 billion won't produce Half-Life 3. In April 1977, an abandoned farmhouse near Toefield, Alberta, Canada, became the scene of a shocking discovery. A couple, who had come to the farm to install a new septic tank pump, stumbled upon human remains in the tank. These remains, later referred to as Septic Tank Sam, led to a mystery that would baffle investigators for decades. The body, identified through years of investigation, endured significant trauma before being concealed. The case of Septic Tank Sam highlights the challenges authorities face in resolving cases of this nature, especially when initial evidence and identification methods are limited. When police arrived on the scene in 1977, they found the body in poor condition, wrapped in a yellow bedsheet, tied with nylon cord, and placed inside the septic tank. According to the autopsy, Sam had suffered various injuries before his death, which involved both beatings and burns. The body had been affected by substances that appeared intended to quicken decomposition, but these efforts were ineffective in concealing evidence. With few clues to go on, the investigation by the Royal Canadian Mounted Police began by seeking to identify the victim. In 1977, forensic methods were far less advanced, so authorities relied on techniques available at the time. They distributed composite sketches and dental records across Canada. Unfortunately, these efforts yielded no promising leads, and the case remained unsolved. The man in the tank was left without a name or a history, and it seemed his identity might never be known. The mystery surrounding Septic Tank Sam drew significant media attention at the time, and over the subsequent years, particularly due to the uncanny composite sketch associated with the man. This publicity, however, didn't uncover new information. The RCMP continued to follow any potential leads, but most went cold quickly. With no identification and no significant leads, the case was eventually deemed a cold case. Decades later, forensic science caught up to the mystery. Advances in DNA technology and genetic testing offered a new path forward. In 2019, the RCMP collaborated with a company called Othram, a Texas-based laboratory specializing in DNA extraction and analysis from degraded samples. Othram was able to use the victim's genetic material to determine his identity. This technique, known as genetic genealogy, involves comparing the DNA to profiles in public databases to locate family members who may have matching DNA sequences. Through this approach, scientists can build family trees leading back to unknown individuals. By mid-2020, through DNA matches to distant family members, the RCMP identified Septic Tank Sam as Gordon Edwin Sanderson, a 26-year-old Indigenous man from Manitoba. Sanderson had been separated from his family early in life, a tragic experience for many Indigenous people who grew up in Canadian foster systems during what's called the 60s Scoop. During this period, Indigenous children were removed from their families and placed in foster care or adopted out, often far from their communities and culture. The purpose of this activity was to destroy the children's connection to their Indigenous heritage, and as one may expect, they very often ended up in horrifically abusive situations. Once Sanderson's identity was confirmed, the RCMP could begin reconstructing his last known activities. They learned he had associated with individuals in Edmonton who may have been involved in criminal activities, and these connections could have put him at risk. The focus of the investigation then shifted to determining who last saw Sanderson alive and why he might have been in the rural area near Toefield. Unfortunately, despite the renewed attention to the case, no clear leads on potential suspects emerged, and no one has been held accountable for his death. If you have any information regarding Gordon Sanderson, please contact the RCMP with details. Despite this case being over 45 years old, I suspect that the level of attention brought on by the famous composite sketch may keep enough attention on it to get it solved. Herobrine is a mythical figure in the Minecraft community, often depicted as a ghostly version of the game's default character, Steve, distinguished by his haunting white eyes. Despite never being part of the official game, Herobrine has become a significant element of Minecraft's folklore, captivating players worldwide. The legend of Herobrine began in 2010 with an anonymous post on 4chan's V-board, which is dedicated to gaming. The author recounted encountering a mysterious figure resembling Steve but with white eyes, who vanished upon being spotted. Following this encounter, the player noticed unusual structures and unexplained changes in their game world. Attempts to discuss this experience online were allegedly met with deletions and a cryptic message from a user named Herobrine, stating, "Stop." The post also claimed that Herobrine was the deceased brother of Notch, the creator of Minecraft. However, Notch has clarified that he doesn't have a dead brother, and that Herobrine was never part of the game. The story gained traction when a popular Minecraft streamer staged a hoax during a live stream. He modified the game's textures to include Herobrine, leading viewers to believe they had witnessed a genuine sighting. This event significantly amplified the legend's popularity, inspiring numerous fan-made sightings, videos, and stories. Despite Mojang's consistent denial of Herobrine's existence, the character has remained a prominent figure in Minecraft's community. The game's developers have occasionally included the phrase "removed Herobrine" in update changelogs, acknowledging the myth humorously. Herobrine's influence extends beyond the game itself. The character has been featured in various fan-made mods, allowing players to experience encounters with the mythical figure. Notably, despite the character having never existed in the game, numerous players claim to have encountered him in unmodded Minecraft. In the early hours of September 1st, 2001, a fire erupted in the Myojo 56 building, located in Tokyo's Kabukicho district. This blaze claimed 44 lives, making it one of Japan's deadliest post-war fires. The incident raised numerous questions about safety standards and potential criminal activities. Around 1 a.m., the fire started on the third floor of the Myojo 56 building. At that time, 19 individuals were on the third floor, and 28 were on the fourth. 3 employees managed to escape by jumping from the third floor, sustaining injuries in the process. Emergency responders arrived promptly, rescuing those who had fled to the roof and recovering the bodies of 44 victims from inside the building. Investigations revealed multiple fire code violations that exacerbated the tragedy. Blocked fire doors and stairwells hindered evacuation efforts. The primary cause of death was carbon monoxide poisoning. Authorities concluded that if the building's automated fire doors hadn't been obstructed, toxic gases wouldn't have reached occupied areas for at least 20 minutes, potentially saving lives. 6 individuals faced charges of professional negligence resulting in death. Among them were 2 executives from the Myojo Kosan Group, the building's owner, and tenants operating a video mahjong parlor and a hostess bar. On July 2, 2008, 5 defendants were convicted, while 1 was acquitted. By July 2008, Tokyo police suspected arson as the fire's cause, but hadn't made any arrests. Reports indicated that the mahjong parlor was an illegal gambling den with significant daily revenues. Speculations arose about possible connections to organized crime, including the Yakuza and Chinese mafia, due to the nature of the businesses involved. However, no concrete evidence linked these groups to the fire. Despite extensive investigations, the exact cause of the fire remains undetermined. Witnesses reported seeing a suspicious man leaving the building around the time of the incident, but he was never identified. Aztlan, often referred to as the ancestral homeland of the Aztec people, remains one of history's enduring enigmas. Described in various Nahuatl legends, Aztlan is depicted as an island paradise, abundant in resources and surrounded by water. The term Aztlan translates to place of whiteness or place of the heron, reflecting its association with herons and possibly white egrets. According to Aztec mythology, 7 tribes, collectively known as the Nahua people, resided in Chikamoztoc, the place of the 7 caves. Each cave represented a different tribe: the Xochimilca, Tlahuica, Acolua, Tlaxcalteca, Tepaneca, Chalca, and Mexica. As I'm editing this, I realize that the last one is properly pronounced Mexica, but yeah, I'm not going to attempt to re-record me reading those names again. These tribes eventually left Chikamoztoc and settled near Aztlan. The Mexica, who later became the Aztecs, were guided by their god Huitzilopochtli to leave Aztlan and embark on a journey that would lead them to the Valley of Mexico. This is where they founded Tenochtitlan in 1325 AD and later became known to history as the Aztecs. The exact location of Aztlan has been a subject of debate among historians and archaeologists. Some theories suggest it was situated in northwestern Mexico, possibly in the state of Nayarit. The island of Mexcaltitan de Uribe has been proposed as a potential site due to its resemblance to descriptions of Aztlan. Mexcaltitan is a small, man-made island on Lake Mexcaltitan, featuring a circular layout with streets arranged in a grid pattern, similar to depictions of Aztlan. Other scholars have posited that Aztlan could be located in the southwestern United States, with some theories extending as far north as Utah. These hypotheses are based on linguistic and cultural similarities between the Aztecs and indigenous groups in these regions. However, no definitive archaeological evidence has been found to confirm these locations. The ambiguity surrounding Aztlan's location is compounded by the fact that it is primarily known through mythological narratives and codices, such as the Codex Boturini. These sources provide symbolic and allegorical descriptions, rather than precise geographical information. Some scholars argue that Aztlan may not correspond to a real physical location, but rather serves as a mythical origin story that underscores the Mexica's cultural identity and migration narrative. Despite numerous centuries of research, the true location of Aztlan, if it indeed existed at all, remains unverified. The Dancing Forest, located on the Curonian Spit in Kaliningrad Oblast, Russia, is renowned for its pine trees with unusually twisted trunks. These trees form rings, spirals, and other convoluted shapes, a phenomenon that has puzzled scientists and visitors alike. Planted in the 1960s, the forest was intended to stabilize the shifting sands of the Curonian Spit. Several theories attempt to explain the tree's peculiar formations. One suggests that the activity of the pine shoot moth caterpillar damages the apical buds of young pines, causing lateral buds to dominate and resulting in twisted growth patterns. Another theory attributes the shapes to the area's strong winds and unstable sandy soil, which may influence the tree's growth directions. The forest's unique appearance has also given rise to local legends. Some believe the tree's shapes are due to the area's positive and negative energies clashing, while others think the trees follow the movement of the sands. Despite various studies, the exact cause of the tree's unusual shapes remains uncertain. The combination of biological factors, environmental conditions, and perhaps even human influence continues to intrigue researchers and nature enthusiasts. Ray Rivera's death in 2006 remains one of Baltimore's most perplexing mysteries. On May 16, 2006, Rivera, a 32-year-old aspiring screenwriter and financial writer, abruptly left his Northwood home after receiving a phone call. His wife, Allison, was out of town on business, and a house guest reported hearing Rivera drop an expletive before rushing out. 6 days later, his decomposed body was discovered in a disused conference room at the Belvedere Hotel having apparently fallen through the roof. The circumstances of his death have sparked numerous theories and debates. Rivera had recently relocated from California to Baltimore to work for his longtime friend, Porter Stansberry, at Stansberry and Associates Investment Research. He was responsible for writing financial newsletters and producing videos for the company. Despite his professional commitments, Rivera harbored ambitions of becoming a screenwriter, a passion he pursued alongside his job. The discovery of Rivera's body raised immediate questions. The hole in the roof suggested a fall from a significant height, but the logistics seemed implausible. The hotel's main roof was 14 stories high, and for Rivera to have landed where he did, he would have needed a running start to clear the distance. This scenario was complicated by the hotel's architectural features, which made running somewhat unlikely. Additionally, Rivera's cell phone and glasses were found near the hole, both intact, which seemed inconsistent with a fall from such a height. The medical examiner's report listed Rivera's cause of death as undetermined, noting multiple injuries consistent with a fall from a considerable height. However, the report also highlighted that some injuries were not typical of a high-velocity impact, leading to further speculation. A significant piece of evidence was a note found taped behind Rivera's computer monitor. The note contained a list of names, including those of prominent figures and family members, as well as references to movies and Freemasonry. The FBI analyzed the note and concluded it wasn't one of those notes one leaves behind when one plans to depart on purpose, if you get my drift. In the days leading up to his disappearance, Rivera exhibited signs of distress. Allison reported that their home alarm had been triggered twice in the preceding weeks, and Rivera appeared increasingly anxious. Despite her concerns, he did not disclose the reasons for his unease. The phone call Rivera received before leaving his home was traced to the switchboard of Agora Publishing, the parent company of Stansberry and Associates. However, the identity of the caller remains unknown, and no one has come forward to provide information about the call's content, which has fueled further suspicion. Porter Stansberry's response to Rivera's death has been a point of contention. Stansberry declined to be interviewed by police and imposed a gag order on his employees, preventing them from discussing the case. This lack of cooperation has led to speculation about his potential involvement or knowledge regarding the circumstances of Rivera's death. Theories about Rivera's death are varied. Some suggest he was pushed or thrown from a height, while others propose he was killed elsewhere and his body placed at the hotel to stage a fall. The intact condition of his cell phone and glasses, as well as the lack of significant blood at the scene, support these alternative theories. In the mid-1960s, a family residing near Copalis Beach, Washington, reported a series of unsettling encounters with a creature they dubbed the Cowman. This entity was described as a large, hairy, and foul-smelling humanoid, standing over 7 feet tall. The family's experiences have since become a notable account in Bigfoot lore. The initial incident occurred when the family's 4-year-old son, Tim, mentioned seeing a cowman entangled in a barbed wire fence on their property. Upon investigation, his mother detected a pungent odor, but saw no creature. Later, the father, John, and his eldest son discovered tufts of reddish-brown hair caught on the fence, accompanied by an unpleasant smell reminiscent of rotting garbage and wet dogs. Subsequent events escalated in intensity. The family reported hearing heavy footsteps around their home at night and observed the creature peering through windows. On one occasion, John and his son ventured into the woods, where they encountered the creature directly. It stood over 7 feet tall, with a broad chest and deep red eyes. When the creature lunged toward his son, John fired his gun into the ground, causing it to retreat. These encounters left the family in a state of fear and confusion. They described the creature as having a human-like form covered in hair, emitting a strong, unpleasant odor, and displaying behaviors that suggested intelligence and curiosity. The term cowman was coined by young Tim, possibly due to the creature's size and the smell associated with livestock. The cowman of Copalis Beach story has been discussed in various forums and publications over the years. Some researchers consider it a credible account of a Bigfoot encounter, while others view it with skepticism. The lack of physical evidence and the reliance on personal testimonies make it challenging to verify the events conclusively. Personally, when I was looking into this one, this really sounds a lot more like a creepypasta than a legitimate encounter with a Bigfoot-like creature. But maybe that's just me. The Global Consciousness Project is a long-standing experiment initiated in 1998, designed to explore the potential influence of collective human consciousness on random physical processes. Spearheaded by Roger Nelson, who was previously associated with the Princeton Engineering Anomalies Research Lab, the project utilizes a global network of random number generators. These random number generations, often referred to as eggs, detect subtle deviations from expected randomness during significant global events. The underlying hypothesis is that during moments of global focus or emotional intensity, human consciousness may collectively influence these RNGs. This is thought to lead to detectable patterns that diverge from statistical randomness. The GCP network operates continuously, collecting data from RNGs situated in over 70 locations worldwide. These devices generate random sequences of numbers that, under normal conditions, should not show any discernible patterns. The project examines whether specific events that capture widespread attention are associated with statistically significant deviations in these random sequences. Over the years, the GCP has documented hundreds of such events, with the data suggesting varying degrees of correlation between the events and the anomalies detected in RNG outputs. For example, the project has analyzed data surrounding global celebrations like New Year's Eve and international efforts like synchronized global meditations. Some of these events have shown strong correlations with deviations from randomness, while others have shown none. Despite these mixed results, the overall analysis suggests that there may be a subtle, yet persistent influence of collective consciousness on random physical systems. The GCP argues that these findings point to the existence of a global consciousness, a shared mind space that can exert influence on the physical world when groups are synchronized. The concept of global consciousness aligns with various philosophical and cultural ideas that posit an interconnectedness of all human beings at a fundamental level. Critics of the GCP argue that the methodology is flawed and that the observed deviations could be the result of statistical anomalies or selection bias rather than a genuine effect of global consciousness. Furthermore, some skeptics point out that not all significant global events produce the expected deviations in RNG outputs, which raises questions about the reproducibility of the GCP's findings. Despite these criticisms, the project has remained a focal point for discussions on the potential intersections between consciousness and manifesting physical reality. Despite its groundbreaking potential, as discussed, the project has faced significant skepticism and efforts to discredit its findings. Some argue that these efforts at, quote, debunking are not purely based on scientific critique, but are motivated by the elite's desire to keep such information from gaining widespread acceptance. Greek fire was a formidable incendiary weapon developed by the Eastern Roman Empire, also known as the Byzantine Empire, in the 7th century AD. Renowned for its ability to ignite upon contact with water, it played a pivotal role in Byzantine naval warfare, particularly in defending Constantinople against sieges. The exact composition of Greek fire remains a mystery, as the Byzantines guarded its formula closely, leading to much speculation among historians. The invention of Greek fire is attributed to Callinicos, a Greek-speaking Jewish refugee from Heliopolis in Syria, who fled to Constantinople around 673 after the city had fallen to the Caliphate. Facing the threat of Arab naval forces, Callinicos offered his creation to Emperor Constantine IV, providing the Byzantines with a significant advantage in naval engagements. The weapon's first recorded use was during the Arab siege of Constantinople in 674, where it was instrumental in repelling the invaders. The precise ingredients and manufacturing process of Greek fire were state secrets, known only to a select few within the Byzantine military. This secrecy was so effective that even today, the exact formula remains unknown. Contemporary accounts suggest that Greek fire was a petroleum-based substance, possibly incorporating components like naphtha, quicklime, sulfur, and resin. Its ability to burn on water made it particularly devastating in naval battles. Greek fire was typically deployed using specialized siphons mounted on Byzantine ships, allowing operators to project the flaming liquid onto enemy vessels. These siphons function similarly to modern flamethrowers, enabling precise targeting during combat. Additionally, Greek fire could be delivered in pots or grenades, which were thrown by hand or launched via catapults, making it versatile in both naval and siege warfare. The introduction of Greek fire revolutionized naval warfare in the medieval period. Its capacity to continue burning on water rendered traditional firefighting methods ineffective, instilling fear among enemy fleets. The psychological impact of facing an inextinguishable fire contributed to numerous Byzantine victories, including the successful defense against the Arab sieges of Constantinople in 674 to 678 and in 717. The Byzantines developed various devices to maximize the effectiveness of Greek fire. One such innovation was the kyrosiphon, a portable handheld siphon that allowed soldiers to project the incendiary substance during land battles and sieges. This adaptability extended the use of Greek fire beyond naval engagements, demonstrating the ingenuity of Byzantine military engineering. However, despite this, its major use generally remained limited to the naval context. The use of Greek fire declined after the 12th century, possibly due to the loss of the secret formula or the advent of new military technologies. Its mysterious composition continues to intrigue historians and scientists, highlighting the challenges of preserving technological knowledge over time. While the exact formula of Greek fire remains unknown, several theories have been proposed regarding its composition. Some historians suggest that Greek fire was primarily composed of petroleum or naphtha, combined with substances like sulfur and quicklime. This combination would create a flammable liquid capable of igniting upon contact with water. Another hypothesis suggests that Greek fire was a combination of sulfur and pine resin, creating a sticky, flammable substance that adhered to surfaces and continued burning. This composition would make it difficult to extinguish, especially in naval battles. Also, don't forget to click like and subscribe for more chill content. Phineas Gage, a 25-year-old railroad construction foreman, became a pivotal figure in neuroscience due to a catastrophic accident on September 13, 1848. While preparing a railroad bed near Cavendish, Vermont, Gage was using a tamping iron to pack explosive powder into a drilled hole. An unexpected detonation propelled the 43-inch long and over an inch thick iron rod through his left cheek, traversing his skull and exiting the top of his head. Amazingly, Gage remained conscious and coherent immediately after the incident. He was able to walk and converse, even recounting the names of his co-workers in the immediate wake of this accident. Dr. John Martin Harlow, the attending physician, documented Gage's recovery. Despite severe trauma, Gage regained physical health, though he lost vision in his left eye and bore significant facial scars. However, those close to him observed profound changes in his personality. Previously described as energetic, motivated, and shrewd, Gage became irreverent, impatient, and prone to profanity. The extent of Gage's brain damage has been a subject of extensive study. In 1994, researchers utilized neuroimaging techniques to reconstruct his skull, revealing injuries to both the left and right prefrontal cortices. This damage likely impaired his emotional processing and decision-making abilities. A subsequent 2004 study using three-dimensional computer-aided reconstruction suggested that the damage was confined to the left frontal lobe. Further research in 2012 estimated that the iron rod destroyed approximately 10% of the white matter in Gage's frontal lobe and 4% of his cerebral cortex. Gage's case significantly influenced early neurology by providing evidence that the frontal lobe plays a crucial role in personality and behavior. His story supported emerging theories about the localization of brain function, suggesting that specific areas of the brain are responsible for particular functions. This case highlighted the brain's role in determining personality and behavior, challenging previous notions that the brain functioned as a whole without specialized regions. But let's get back to how Gage functioned after this incident. After the accident, Gage was unable to continue his previous job. He spent some time traveling through New England and Europe with his tamping iron to earn money, supposedly even appearing in the Barnum American Museum in New York. He also worked briefly at a livery stable in New Hampshire, and then spent 7 years as a stagecoach driver in Chile. He eventually moved to San Francisco to live with his mother as his health deteriorated. After a series of epileptic seizures, Gage died on May 21st, 1860, almost 12 years after his accident. The full extent of the impact of this injury upon Gage is still actively being studied over 150 years after the incident. Also, big shout out to a Discord member who wishes to remain anonymous for this suggestion. You know who you are. If you have any recommendations for this series, feel free to join up in the Discord and leave the recommendations there, or leave a comment below. The life cycle of periodical cicadas, particularly the 13 and 17-year species, is an ongoing biological mystery. Unlike annual cicadas that emerge yearly, periodical cicadas spend the majority of their lives underground in a juvenile nymph form. They surface only once per cycle to mature, mate, and die within a matter of weeks. This timing is remarkably precise, with broods emerging in synchronized cycles every 13 or 17 years, a phenomenon unique to North American species in the eastern and midwestern United States. Upon hatching, periodical cicada nymphs fall to the ground and burrow to a depth of about 8 inches, where they latch onto tree roots and begin a prolonged subterranean phase, feeding on root sap. For years they remain hidden, developing slowly until a precise moment dictated by seasonal environmental cues, particularly soil temperature. When the soil reaches a certain temperature, the nymphs emerge en masse, typically at night to avoid predators. This synchronized emergence allows them to overwhelm predators through sheer numbers, ensuring that enough adults survive to reproduce, a strategy known as predator satiation. Also, yes, you heard me correctly, their strategy to avoid predation as a whole is to stuff their predators so full of a cicada feast that the predators simply can't eat another bite. One of the most puzzling aspects of periodical cicadas is how they measure time during their long underground tenure. It's theorized that they might possess an internal molecular clock, potentially responding to the cyclical changes in the xylem, the vascular tissue of trees through which they feed. However, this remains an unconfirmed hypothesis and somewhat controversial. Interestingly, Cicadas don't hibernate but remain active in their underground shelters, tunneling and feeding on root sap. Despite extensive research, scientists have yet to fully understand how these insects track the passing of years with such accuracy. Some speculate that hormonal cycles or genetic programming might play a role, though no definitive mechanism has been identified. After their emergence, adult cicadas have a very short lifespan, generally lasting around 4 to 6 weeks. During this brief period, they engage in a frenzy of mating activities. Male cicadas are renowned for their loud, rhythmic songs, which are produced by a pair of specialized structures called tymbals, located on their abdomen. These sounds, which are among the loudest in the insect world, serve as mating calls that attract females. Each species of periodical cicada has a distinct song, allowing them to identify potential mates amidst the cacophony created by other cicadas. Once fertilized, females lay eggs in the tender branches of trees. Within 6 to 10 weeks, the eggs hatch, and the cycle recommences as the young nymphs fall to the ground and burrow into the soil. Despite years of observation, the cyclical nature of periodical cicadas continues to challenge entomologists and evolutionary biologists. Theories about their development and emergence remain largely speculative, with many aspects of their life cycle and timing remaining a complete mystery. Kristen Denise Smart, born on February 20th, 1977, was a 19-year-old freshman at California Polytechnic State University, commonly known as Cal Poly, in San Luis Obispo. On May 25, 1996, she attended an off-campus party, marking the last time she was seen alive. Fellow student Paul Flores was the last person known to have been with her as he walked her back toward her dormitory. Despite extensive searches and investigations, her body has never been found. Paul Flores immediately became a person of interest in this case. However, he maintained that he had no knowledge of her whereabouts. In the years following her disappearance, Paul Flores remained a person of interest. However, it wasn't until April 2021 that he was arrested and charged with her slaying, despite her body never being recovered. His father, Ruben Flores, was also arrested and charged as an accessory after the fact, accused of helping to conceal Smart's body. The trial began in July 2022, with Paul Flores facing first-degree charges and his father facing charges of being an accessory after the fact. Prosecutors alleged that Paul Flores conducted an attempted indecent assault in his dorm room, and when she fought back, he ended her. They also alleged that Ruben Flores helped hide her body under his deck before moving it years later. In October 2022, a jury found Paul Flores guilty of first-degree involvement in Kristen's death. He was sentenced in March 2023 to 25 years to life in prison. Ruben Flores was ultimately acquitted of the accessory charge. However, this isn't the end of the story. Far from it. Despite the conviction, Kristen Smart's body has never been found, and her family continues to seek closure. In April 2024, Paul Flores was attacked and stabbed by another inmate at Pleasant Valley State Prison. In June 2024, a judge ordered Paul Flores to pay over $300,000 in restitution to the Smart family for expenses related to the search for Kristen, amongst other expenses. The family offered to forego the restitution if Flores revealed the location of Kristen's body, but he has maintained his innocence. In October 2024, Paul Flores filed an appeal seeking to overturn his conviction, alleging violations of his due process rights and the right to an impartial jury during his trial. The appeal is currently pending, and I hope to have an update on this case in a future episode of this series. In the early morning of August 7, 1566, the citizens of Basel, Switzerland, witnessed a series of unexplained celestial events that have intrigued historians and scholars for centuries. The sky was reportedly filled with numerous black and red spherical objects that appeared to engage in a chaotic aerial display. These phenomena were documented in contemporary broadsheets and illustrated with woodcuts, capturing the imagination and fear of the populace. As the sun rose, large black spheres were seen darting across the sky at great speeds. Eyewitnesses described these objects as engaging in what seemed like a fierce battle, colliding with one another and changing colors from black to fiery red. The spectacle lasted several hours, leaving onlookers both awestruck and terrified. Samuel Apiarius, a renowned Swiss printer of the time, produced a broadsheet featuring a detailed woodcut of the event, providing a visual record of this bizarre event. This event in Basel was not an isolated incident. Just 5 years earlier, on April 14th, 1561, the city of Nuremberg, Germany, experienced a similar phenomenon. The woodcut illustrations accompanying reports of the Basel event offer valuable insights into the perceptions of the time. The images depict numerous spheres over the city's skyline, with the sun and moon prominently featured, emphasizing the unnaturalness of the sighting. Modern scholars have attempted to provide natural explanations for the Basel sightings. One possibility is the occurrence of sundogs, atmospheric optical phenomena that create bright spots in the sky due to the refraction of sunlight by ice crystals. Another explanation could be meteor showers or celestial bodies entering the Earth's atmosphere, which were not well understood at the time. However, the descriptions of the object's behavior, moving erratically, engaging in apparent combat, and changing colors, do not align with these natural phenomena. These inconsistencies have led to alternative skeptical theories. Some researchers suggest that psychological factors, such as mass hysteria or collective hallucinations, may have played a role. Other theorists view it as an early account of unidentified flying objects, contributing to the broader narrative on UFO sightings throughout history. The so-called Greek pyramids are an intriguing archaeological phenomenon, primarily located in the Argolid region of Greece. The most well-known of these is the Pyramid of Hellinikon, near the town of Elliniko. Unlike the impressive Egyptian pyramids, the Greek structures are far smaller and have an ambiguous purpose, leading to numerous debates among archaeologists regarding their true nature and function. The dating of these pyramids remains controversial. Early investigations suggested they could have been constructed between 2500 and 2000 BC, overlapping with the period when Egyptian pyramids were being built. However, more modern dating techniques suggest they were constructed sometime in the first millennium BC, with some pinpointing the construction to the middle of the millennium. The Pyramid of Hellenikon's purpose is heavily disputed. Some theories suggest it was a tomb or mass grave, as was often implied by ancient sources like Pausanias, a Greek traveler and geographer who documented such monuments in the 2nd century AD. However, others have argued that the structure was more likely used as a small fortress or watchtower, potentially serving agricultural or defensive functions. This interpretation aligns with the internal design features, such as walls, cisterns, and water supplies, which are atypical for a purely funerary structure. The trapezoidal blocks used in the construction are reminiscent of other defensive structures from the classical period, and the small rooms and secured doors further indicate non-funerary use. The theory that the pyramids were related to Egyptian influence is largely unsupported by concrete evidence. Although some have speculated about the presence of Egyptian mercenaries or cultural exchange influencing these structures, the evidence does not convincingly support a direct connection. Instead, it appears that these Greek quote-unquote pyramids may have evolved from a localized Greek tradition, utilizing construction methods and purposes distinct from those of Egypt. Notably, many scholars dispute the usage of the term pyramid in relation to these structures at all, instead opting for the term fortified building. Notably, the Greek Ministry of Culture has been hesitant to officially designate these structures as pyramids, instead referring to Hellinikon as a fortified building. And I have to think the Greeks are just flexing on the rest of the world with this one, basically saying, hey, we've got so much that we don't even care if you consider these pyramids. During World War II, Allied pilots reported encountering mysterious aerial phenomena known as Foo Fighters. These unexplained sightings occurred primarily over Europe and the Pacific, perplexing airmen and intelligence officials alike. The term Foo Fighter was derived from the comic strip Smokey Stover, where the character frequently used the nonsensical word foo, which the pilots adopted to describe the occurrences. The first recorded sightings began in late 1944. Pilots from a night fighter squadron reported fast-moving, glowing objects following their aircraft over Germany. These objects were described as fiery and glowing red, white, or orange. These phenomena exhibited flight capabilities beyond any known aircraft of the time. They could climb, dive, and change direction rapidly, often seeming to toy with the pilots. Attempts to engage or outmaneuver these objects were futile, as they could easily match the speed and agility of the fastest Allied planes. The inability to identify or counteract these phenomena led to growing frustration and concern among air crews. Despite their extraordinary maneuvers, the Foo Fighters never displayed hostile behavior. They did not attack or interfere with the aircraft's controls, but their presence was unnerving. The Allied command initially suspected that these sightings were linked to advanced German technology. There was concern that the Foo Fighters might be a new enemy weapon designed to harass or disorient pilots. Intelligence efforts were made to determine if the Germans had developed new types of aircraft or anti-aircraft devices. However, interrogations of captured enemy pilots and examinations of enemy equipment yielded no evidence supporting this theory. Sightings were not limited to the European theater. In the Pacific, pilots also reported encounters with similar phenomena. Objects were described as disc-shaped or resembling glowing balls of light that paced alongside aircraft or performed impossible aerial feats. Consistent reports across different regions suggested that the phenomena were not isolated incidents or localized atmospheric anomalies. Alternative explanations emerged as the war progressed. Some scientists and military officials proposed that the Foo Fighters were natural phenomena, such as St. Elmo's fire, an electrical discharge appearing on aircraft surfaces. However, pilots contested this explanation, citing the object's ability to fly independently and perform controlled maneuvers. Ball lightning was another suggested explanation. This rare atmospheric phenomenon involves luminous spheres of electricity lasting longer than typical lightning strikes. Yet ball lightning is generally unpredictable and short-lived, failing to account for the prolonged and consistent behaviors observed in Foo Fighter encounters. Psychological factors were also considered by Allied commanders. The intense stress of combat missions, fatigue, and the limitations of night flying could contribute to misperceptions or hallucinations. Nonetheless, the credibility of the pilots, many of whom were seasoned veterans with extensive flight experience, made it difficult to dismiss the sightings as mere illusions. The media caught wind of these mysterious sightings, and newspaper articles began to appear, fueling public curiosity. Wartime censorship and the priority of military operations kept detailed reports out of the public domain. After the war, declassified documents brought renewed interest in the Foo Fighters among researchers and UFO enthusiasts. In the post-war period, the advent of the Cold War shifted focus to new aerial threats, and the Foo Fighter phenomena faded from official concern. Some historians and researchers view the Foo Fighters as a precursor to the modern UFO phenomenon that gained prominence in the latter half of the 20th century. Ashinaga Tanaga consists of two beings, Ashinaga Jin, who possesses extremely long legs, and Tanaga Jin, who has exceptionally long arms. These two yokai work together in a rather symbiotic manner. The long-legged Ashinaga wades into the water while Tanaga sits on his partner's shoulders to catch fish using his long arms. This coordinated teamwork is a hallmark of their mythological depiction. They are primarily associated with the region of Kyushu and were first documented in a Japanese encyclopedia published in 1712. However, it's suspected that they have a much longer tradition in the region, potentially spanning back centuries or even a millennium before this publication. But since I haven't covered yokai on this series in a long time, let me just take a quick moment to provide everyone a refresher on the topic. Yokai represent a whole host of supernatural beings and are an integral part of Japanese folklore. They encompass a wide variety of creatures, spirits, and phenomena that may range from animalistic to humanoid, or even be inanimate objects. These entities possess supernatural abilities, most commonly shape-shifting, and their behavior spans the spectrum from mischievous to benevolent or malevolent. Anyway, let's get back to this bizarre supernatural creature. The long limbs of these yokai are significant, with Ashinaga's legs said to be roughly 6 meters in length, and Tanaga's arms even longer at about 9 meters. The names Ashinaga, or long legs, and Tanaga, or long arms, reflect the literal traits of these beings. According to local folklore, Ashinaga is also known to be an omen of bad weather. Historically, fishermen have generally reported sighting them as fog rolls in, with some suggesting they were actually a distant optical illusion. The location of Cleopatra's tomb remains one of the great mysteries of archaeology. Historical records from ancient historians like Plutarch and Cassius Dio indicate that Cleopatra and her lover, Mark Antony, were buried together in a grand mausoleum. According to these records, Cleopatra purportedly ordered the construction of this building herself, specifically to house her after death. Yet, they don't provide precise details about its location, fueling millennia of speculation and search efforts. One prevailing theory places Cleopatra's tomb within Alexandria, the city where she ruled and died in 30 BC. Alexandria, once a hub of learning and culture, has long intrigued archaeologists and historians as the most probable resting place of Cleopatra due to its importance during her reign. However, Alexandria's landscape has dramatically shifted over centuries. Much of its ancient architecture, including Cleopatra's royal quarters, is now submerged under the Mediterranean Sea. Scholars suggest that any tomb in Alexandria may now be underwater, buried beneath silt and rubble. This theory has led to extensive underwater excavations and mapping of parts of ancient Alexandria's submerged city. Nevertheless, despite recovering artifacts dating to Cleopatra's era, no concrete evidence of her tomb has surfaced from these underwater expeditions. In recent decades, Taposiris Magna, a temple complex located approximately 25 miles west of Alexandria, has emerged as a significant contender for Cleopatra's tomb location. Archaeologist Kathleen Martinez has focused her efforts on this location, reasoning that Cleopatra, a devoted follower of the goddess Isis, would choose to be buried in a temple dedicated to her. Martinez's excavations have uncovered artifacts that strengthen this hypothesis. Among her finds are over 200 coins bearing Cleopatra's face, statues of deities associated with royal lineage, and sealed burial chambers containing mummies with links to the Ptolemaic dynasty. In 2022, Martinez's team discovered a tunnel under Taposiris Magna, which some archaeologists consider to be the best lead in the quest for Cleopatra's tomb. This tunnel, which resembles ancient Greek aqueducts, could potentially lead to an undiscovered burial chamber. The tunnel's alignment with the ancient temple architecture and its depth indicate that it might house a burial site of significant importance. The excavation at Taposiris Magna has not only yielded coins and statues, but also high-status mummies adorned with gold leaf, a burial practice typically reserved for Egyptian royalty or nobility. These mummies, though not confirmed to be Cleopatra's, suggest the temple site was an elite burial ground, possibly linked to her inner circle or close allies. Advancements in technology have transformed the search for Cleopatra's tomb, especially at complex sites like Taposiris Magna. Ground-penetrating radar and LiDAR have become instrumental in locating potential burial chambers within the temple complex without invasive digging. GPR has been particularly helpful in identifying subsurface voids and anomalies that might indicate hidden rooms or passages. These technologies allow archaeologists to map areas of interest in detail, improving precision in targeted excavations. While Martinez's work at Taposiris Magna has received substantial acclaim, her theory is not without its critics. Some Egyptologists argue that the absence of inscriptions or other definitive royal markers at Taposiris Magna weakens the case for it being Cleopatra's final resting place. They note that, although significant discoveries have been made, none explicitly reference Cleopatra or Antony, nor provide a clear link to the Ptolemaic royal tomb. The mystery of consciousness and how subjective experience emerges from the physical brain remains one of the most perplexing questions in science. This issue challenges scientists to explain how we experience sensations, thoughts, and emotions. Though it's accepted that these elements arise from complex interactions within the brain, they cannot easily be reduced to a mere brain function that can be separated out and explained. Advances in neuroscience have identified specific brain areas associated with consciousness. Using brain imaging techniques like functional MRI, researchers can observe how certain regions communicate in both conscious and unconscious states. Studies reveal that conscious individuals exhibit complex, dynamic interactions across numerous brain regions, while those who are unconscious or under anesthesia lack these interactions. This synchronization among higher-order cognition regions, particularly in the frontal and parietal areas, is thought to contribute to conscious processing. One theory, known as the global workspace theory, suggests that consciousness arises when information is broadcast across multiple brain regions, allowing areas to share information broadly. This quote-unquote workspace integrates sensory inputs with memories, emotions, and decision-making processes to create a unified experience of consciousness. The broadcasting mechanism in the brain allows for selected information to be accessible across various regions, enabling the brain to integrate this information into a coherent whole. Another influential model, adaptive resonance theory, proposes that consciousness results from resonance between neural circuits. This model suggests that consciousness emerges when the brain's top-down expectations align with incoming sensory information, creating a state of resonance. This resonant state amplifies and sustains specific neural signals long enough to produce conscious recognition of objects or events in the environment. According to this theory, resonance is the mechanism by which the brain translates raw sensory data into conscious experience. Research into neural correlates of consciousness, or NCCs, has provided additional insight. NCCs are specific brain activity patterns associated with conscious awareness. In patients who are in vegetative or minimally conscious states, imaging reveals limited or absent NCCs. Conversely, conscious patients display a range of complex NCC activities, which appears to correspond with conscious mental states. By analyzing these brain patterns, scientists gain insight into how specific structures and functions in the brain support consciousness. Theories that invoke quantum mechanics or suggest higher dimensional models offer more speculative explanations. For instance, some propose that consciousness may be linked to quantum processes within the brain's microstructures. This theory posits that quantum states within cellular structures might collapse into particular configurations, resulting in consciousness. Explorations into higher dimensions attempt to understand consciousness as possibly existing beyond typical three-dimensional space, suggesting that awareness may involve more dimensions. From an evolutionary perspective, consciousness may have developed as an adaptive function that improves survival. Early forms of sensory awareness are observed in organisms without centralized nervous systems, such as jellyfish, which show basic responses to environmental stimuli. More complex nervous systems in animals, particularly mammals and birds, evolved with the capacity for self-modeling and internal representation. These developments allowed animals to predict and interpret their environment, enhancing survival and laying the foundation for consciousness. Modern evolutionary models suggest that human consciousness is distinctive, particularly due to our symbolic language abilities. The capability to use language allows for the formation of abstract thoughts, cultural learning, and communication of complex ideas. The concept of emergence is another significant approach to understanding consciousness. Emergent phenomena are those that arise from the interaction of simpler elements without being present in any individual component. In this view, while individual neurons do not possess consciousness, their interconnected activity within brain networks could lead to the emergence of conscious experience. This model of emergence is particularly useful for explaining why consciousness does not correspond to specific brain regions, but appears to be distributed across multiple networks. Although scientists have made considerable progress in identifying the brain's role in conscious experience, the exact mechanisms by which subjective experiences emerge remain deeply mysterious. Of course, I feel that it's also necessary to mention religious approaches to consciousness. In spiritual traditions, consciousness is often regarded as a manifestation of the soul, spirit, or divine essence, transcending material explanations. Many spiritual perspectives view consciousness as an aspect of a higher, universal reality, or a divine force that links individual awareness to a greater whole. That said, I'll be exploring this question from a more spiritual perspective in depth in a later episode. Ava Grace Baldwin was last seen on September 17, 2015, and is believed to have been abducted by her mother, Catherine Ann Baldwin, who has a felony warrant for interfering with child custody. Ava's parents, Catherine Baldwin and David Hopper, had a brief marriage lasting just over a month. After their separation, Catherine moved to Texas, and David, residing in Oklahoma, faced challenges in maintaining contact with his daughter. In 2013, after a custody battle, David was granted joint custody of Ava. In September 2015, Ava's elementary school contacted David, informing him that Ava had been absent for nearly 3 weeks. When authorities visited Catherine's listed address, they discovered it was an empty lot, indicating that Catherine had provided false information. Catherine Baldwin has a history of mental illness, as well as issues with substance abuse. She is supposed to take medication, but there's been no record of her refilling her prescriptions since 2015. She and Ava may move frequently and may be staying in women's shelters or homeless shelters. According to the authorities, Catherine may be telling people that she is being stalked by her ex-spouse or other individuals. In April 2016, 7 months after their disappearance, Catherine's vehicle, a silver 2014 Ford Escape, was found abandoned in a parking lot on Whitby Road in San Antonio. Despite this discovery, there have been no confirmed sightings of Ava or Catherine since 2015. David Hopper remains hopeful that Ava is alive. He said there have been sightings of the pair since they disappeared, including contact from a couple in Florida who said Catherine tried to hand over custody of Ava to them in 2016. In 2020, the San Antonio police confirmed Catherine may be using as many as a dozen aliases in her travels across the United States. Ava's case has garnered significant attention on social media platforms, with users speculating about her whereabouts. In 2022, a supposedly creepy TikTok account featuring a mother-daughter duo singing and dancing led some to believe they might be Ava and Catherine. However, investigations confirmed that the individuals in the videos were not them. As of November 2024, Ava Grace Baldwin remains missing. Her father, David Hopper, continues to search for her, holding on to hope that she is alive and will one day return home. Authorities urge anyone with information about Ava's whereabouts to contact the San Antonio Police Department. The abduction of Megumi Yokota remains one of the most haunting, unresolved cases in Japan's modern history. On November 15, 1977, the bright and cheerful 13-year-old disappeared while walking home from badminton practice in Niigata Prefecture. At the time, her family and local authorities were baffled by her sudden disappearance, suspecting a tragic accident or a crime closer to home. It would take over 2 decades for the truth to emerge. Megumi had been abducted by North Korean operatives as part of a covert program to kidnap Japanese citizens. But let's briefly discuss why this was happening first before we return to Megumi's case, specifically since I think some context is necessary here. During the late 1970s and early 1980s, North Korea carried out a systematic campaign of abductions, targeting citizens from Japan, South Korea, and other countries. The motives behind these kidnappings were multifaceted. Some abductees were forced to teach Japanese language and culture to North Korean spies. Others had their identities stolen so operatives could infiltrate Japan and other nations undetected. In some cases, the abductees were reportedly used to populate isolated communities in North Korea, providing Japanese spouses for North Korean citizens. Notably, the understanding is that these Japanese spouses would teach their children to speak Japanese at a native level, resulting in perfect infiltrators into Japanese society. The Japanese government officially recognizes 17 of its citizens as having been abducted by North Korea, though some advocacy groups believe the true number is much higher. Megumi Yokota's abduction stands out not only because of her age, she was just a schoolgirl, but also because her case became a focal point for Japan's struggle to resolve the abduction issue. Her disappearance and the subsequent revelations sparked national outrage, galvanized international support, and placed immense pressure on the Japanese government to act. On the day of her disappearance, Megumi had finished badminton practice at school and was walking home with her friends. She parted ways with them around 6 p.m., just a short distance from her home. When she failed to return, her parents began a frantic search, eventually involving local police. At first, authorities suspected she might have run away or been the victim of an accident or crime. Personally, I found this quite broad, given that a runaway, an accident, or a crime covers virtually every scenario Megumi could have been involved in. However, no clues whatsoever emerged, and the case went cold. For over 20 years, the Yokota family lived in anguish, not knowing what had happened to their daughter. It wasn't until the late 1990s that North Korean defectors began revealing details of an abduction program targeting Japanese citizens. By 2002, Megumi's name surfaced as one of the confirmed abductees, shocking her family and the Japanese public. In a groundbreaking development in 2002, then Japanese Prime Minister Junichiro Koizumi visited Pyongyang for talks with North Korean leader Kim Jong-il. During this meeting, North Korea admitted to abducting 13 Japanese citizens, including Megumi. The regime claimed that 5 of the abductees were still alive and would be returned to Japan, while the remaining 8, Megumi among them, had allegedly died. North Korea presented evidence to support these claims, including purported remains of Megumi, which they said had been cremated. However, the evidence provided by North Korea was riddled with inconsistencies. DNA testing conducted in Japan on the remains purportedly belonging to Megumi yielded inconclusive results, fueling significant skepticism. The Yokota family and the Japanese government openly challenged the credibility of North Korea's claims, arguing that the regime had a vested interest in obscuring the truth. Many Japanese citizens, moved by the Yokota's plight, began to believe that Megumi might still be alive. North Korea maintains that she ended herself in 1994 while struggling with depression while in captivity. Several reports and testimonies have fueled speculation that Megumi might still be alive. For example, some North Korean defectors have claimed to have seen her or heard about her living in North Korea in recent years. Additionally, the circumstances of her alleged death and cremation have been questioned, as they don't align with known North Korean practices. In 2014, the Japanese government reopened its investigation into Megumi's fate, sending a delegation to North Korea as part of renewed negotiations. However, the talks stalled, and no new evidence emerged to clarify her status. Bobby McKay's Music World, located in Wilder, Kentucky, is a nightclub with an allegedly storied past that intertwines music with tales of the supernatural. Established in 1978 by country singer Bobby McKay, the venue has become a focal point for paranormal investigators. The site's history dates back to the mid-19th century, though little about the property can be independently verified, given the overlay of urban legend on this story. By 1850, a large slaughterhouse and meatpacking facility was constructed on the property to serve northwestern Kentucky and nearby Cincinnati, Ohio. In the lowest part of the building, a well was dug and used to hold the material from the slaughtered animals. After the slaughterhouse closed in the 1890s, the building remained vacant for several years. In the 1920s, it was transformed into a speakeasy and casino known as the Primrose Club. The club's owner faced pressure from organized crime figures and eventually ended himself. In the 1950s, the building operated as a nightclub called the Latin Quarter, which was reportedly the scene of several violent incidents, including a slaying. The establishment closed its doors in the 1970s, leaving the building vacant until Bobby McKay purchased it. Bobby sought to create a venue where he could perform and share his passion for country music. He opened Bobby McKay's Music World in September 1978, offering live music, dancing, and entertainment. Over the years, Bobby McKay's Music World has gained a reputation as one of America's most haunted locations. Numerous visitors and employees have reported unexplained phenomena, leading to widespread interest from paranormal enthusiasts. One of the most persistent legends involves the spirit of Pearl Bryan, a young woman who was slain in 1896. Her body was found in a field near Fort Thomas, Kentucky, and her head was never recovered. Some believe that those responsible were involved in occult practices and disposed of her head in the well located in the basement of what is now this haunted honky-tonk. This well has since been dubbed the Portal to Hell by some paranormal investigators. Another tale speaks of a dancer named Joanna, who allegedly performed at the Latin Quarter in the 1950s. According to the legend, Joanna fell in love with a singer at the club and became pregnant. Her father, enraged by the relationship, is said to have slain the singer. Devastated, Joanna purportedly poisoned her father and then voluntarily ended herself. Some patrons and staff claim to have encountered her spirit, describing the scent of roses and the sound of a female voice singing in the club. The building's basement, particularly the area surrounding the well, is often cited as a hotspot for paranormal activity. Visitors have reported hearing disembodied voices, experiencing sudden cold spots, and witnessing objects moving on their own. Perhaps most disturbingly, some have apparently claimed to see eyes moving in the so-called portal to hell. In March 2024, Bobby McKay's Music World closed its Wilder location. The owners announced plans to temporarily relocate to a site in Florence, Kentucky, while the original building is demolished and a new facility is constructed. Notably, the well in the basement, often referred to as the portal to hell, is set to be relocated to the new site. Whether the ghoulish entities will follow along remains to be seen. Also, big shout out to patron Kevin Potts for this great suggestion. If you have any recommendations, please leave them in the comments below, or join up on the Discord server and leave them there directly. The Meister footprint is a controversial artifact that has intrigued both enthusiasts and skeptics since its discovery in 1968. Found by William J. Meister near Antelope Springs, Utah, this fossil appears to depict a human-like shoe print containing trilobite fossils. These organisms thrived approximately 500 million years ago during the Cambrian period. Meister, an amateur fossil hunter, was exploring the Wheeler Shale Formation when he split open a slab of rock, revealing what seemed to be a sandal print. Within this impression were two trilobite fossils, one of which appeared to be crushed, suggesting it was stepped on while still alive. This finding was particularly provocative because it implied that humans existed during the Cambrian period, a notion that contradicts established scientific understanding of human evolution. The Meister print quickly gained attention amongst creationists and proponents of alternative historical theories, who viewed it as evidence supporting the coexistence of humans and ancient life. They argued that such a fossil challenges the conventional timeline of human evolution and supports the idea of a young Earth. However, the scientific community has completely dismissed these claims. Paleontologists and geologists have examined the Meister footprint and concluded that the formation is a natural geological occurrence rather than a human footprint. They attribute its appearance to a process known as spall formation, where layers of rock flake off, creating shapes that can resemble footprints or other familiar forms. The presence of trilobite fossils within these formations is consistent with the known fossil record of the area, which is rich in Cambrian-era marine life. Further scrutiny revealed that similar impressions are common in the Wheeler Shale Formation, many of which do not contain trilobites. This suggests that the impressions are not footprints, but rather natural depressions formed by geological processes. Additionally, the supposed heel and toe area of the print lack the anatomical details expected in a genuine footprint, such as consistent depth and pressure patterns. While the human brain is adept at recognizing patterns, leading to phenomena like pareidolia, where random stimuli are perceived as significant, scientific analysis requires rigorous testing and evidence. In the case of the Meister print, the consensus is that it is a natural formation, coincidentally resembling a footprint, with the trilobite's presence being a result of the area's rich fossil content. I find the Meister print to be a somewhat amusing case of seeing what we want in random patterns. The idea that a Cambrian-era quote-unquote sandal squashed a trilobite is like imagining dinosaurs wearing party hats based upon finding conical fossils near dinosaur fossils. It's fun, but absurd. Woo In-hee was a prominent North Korean actress who rose to fame during the 1970s, known for her exceptional talent and striking beauty. She was celebrated as one of the leading figures in North Korean cinema, a field tightly controlled and shaped by the regime of Kim Jong-il, the future leader of North Korea. However, Woo In-hee's legacy is not only tied to her career, but also to the scandalous and tragic events that surrounded her life, particularly her rumored affair with Kim Jong-il. Born in the mid-20th century, Woo In-hee entered adulthood during a time when North Korea was consolidating its cultural identity. The exact details of her early life remain murky due to the secretive nature of North Korea, but it is believed that she came from a relatively privileged background. This privilege likely allowed her to pursue an acting career, a rare opportunity in such a restrictive society. North Korean cinema, under the strict control of the Workers' Party of Korea, was designed to glorify the regime, promote ideologically compatible beliefs, and exalt the Kim family. Woo In-hee's beauty and charisma made her a perfect candidate for such roles. By the 1970s, she had become a household name in North Korea, starring in films that depicted heroic revolutionaries, virtuous women, and loyal citizens. These films were propaganda tools meant to inspire devotion to the state and its leaders, but for Woo, they also brought immense personal fame and attention. Kim Jong-il, the son of North Korea's founding leader Kim Il-sung, had a personal obsession with film. He considered cinema the most powerful art form for shaping public opinion and instilling ideological loyalty. As head of the propaganda department, Kim Jong-il oversaw every aspect of North Korean filmmaking, from scriptwriting to casting. His deep involvement created a strange and oppressive environment for actors, directors, and other artists. Under Kim's watchful eye, Woo In-hee emerged as one of the most prominent figures in this cultural machine. Her roles often reflected the regime's ideals: unwavering loyalty to the state, sacrifice for the greater good, and moral purity. Off-screen, however, her life would soon take a turn that challenged these very ideals. Rumors of Woo In-hee's affair with Kim Jong-il began to circulate in the late 1970s. At the time, Kim Jong-il was already married to Kim Young-suk and had begun cultivating his public image as a capable successor to his father. Despite this, he was known for his indulgent lifestyle, which reportedly included a penchant for alone time with beautiful actresses and singers. Woo In-hee, with her fame and allure, became one of his most high-profile romantic conquests. The relationship between Woo In-hee and Kim Jong-il was not merely a private matter. It was entangled with the political and social fabric of North Korea. In a regime where loyalty to the leader was paramount, personal relationships with members of the Kim family came with significant risks. Woo's association with Kim likely elevated her status within certain circles, but also made her vulnerable to the whims of the dictator and his inner circle. The exact circumstances that led to Woo In-hee's downfall remain a closely guarded secret, as with most stories involving the North Korean elite. Some reports suggest that she fell out of favor with Kim Jong-il after their affair ended. Others speculate that she may have been accused of disloyalty or inappropriate behavior, charges that were often fabricated in North Korea to justify purges. Other reports indicate that she told individuals about the nature of her affair with Kim Jong-il. What is known is that Woo In-hee was executed in the early 1980s. Accounts of Woo's execution vary, with some claiming that she was publicly humiliated before her death. The most famous story indicates that she was paraded in front of 6,000 students of a North Korean military academy, where her husband, a film director, was present. After being publicly berated, she was tied to a post and subsequently slain by a firing squad for all to see, and as a sick display of power by Kim Jong-il and the North Korean state. Keith Ratliff, a firearms enthusiast and co-owner of FPS Industries Global, was found lifeless on January 3, 2013, at his business premises in Carnesville, Georgia. Ratliff's passing quickly garnered widespread attention due to his association with FPS Russia, a massively popular YouTube channel dedicated to showcasing firearms and explosives. Ratliff's body was discovered by an employee who arrived at the FPS Industries facility. The Franklin County Sheriff's Office responded to the scene and immediately sought assistance from the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, better known as the GBI. Investigators spent over 24 hours meticulously examining the premises, aiming to uncover any evidence that might lead to the perpetrator. Ratliff had suffered a single gunshot wound to the head, a detail later confirmed by the coroner's report. There were no signs of forced entry, and some firearms and surveillance equipment were missing. The absence of visible signs of struggle led authorities to consider that Ratliff might have known his assailant. This theory, coupled with his role in the firearms industry and online presence, suggested a potentially complex motive behind the crime. Notably, he was instrumental in the operations of FPS Russia, a YouTube channel boasting millions of subscribers at the time. The channel featured its host, Kyle Myers, performing demonstrations of various firearms and explosives in a comedic and theatrical manner with an exaggerated fake Russian accent. Ratliff's role involved sourcing and managing the legal logistics for the high-powered weaponry featured on the channel. Despite the high-profile nature of the case, law enforcement faced significant hurdles in identifying the perpetrator. The GBI, along with federal agencies like the FBI and the ATF, launched an extensive investigation. However, progress was hampered by the lack of witnesses, clear motives, and concrete evidence. Investigators combed through Ratliff's personal and professional connections, including his work in the firearms industry and potential conflicts arising from FPS Russia's high-profile status. One theory proposed that Ratliff's death could be linked to his involvement in the firearms trade, as the weapons featured in FPS Russia videos were often rare and valuable. Additionally, his role in managing firearms procurement may have placed him in contact with potentially dangerous individuals. Notably, the investigation revealed that some of Ratliff's firearms and surveillance equipment were missing from the FPS Industries facility. This raised questions about whether the missing items were part of a targeted robbery or if they were intentionally removed to obfuscate the crime. Ratliff's friends and family remain adamant that he wouldn't have allowed someone he didn't trust into the facility, adding credence to the theory that the assailant might have been someone he knew. The news of Ratliff's death sent shockwaves through both the firearms community and FPS Russia's massive fan base. More than a decade later, Ratliff's case remains unsolved, with no arrests or significant breakthroughs reported. Authorities have repeatedly urged the public to come forward with any information that might assist in solving the case. If you have any information in relation to this case, please contact the Georgia Bureau of Investigation. The Grand Grimoire, also known as the Red Dragon, is one of the most infamous grimoires in occult history. Known for its association with black magic, it's said to contain powerful rituals for summoning demons and forming pacts. While some editions date the manuscript as far back as 1521 or 1522, historians argue the text is likely from the early 18th century. The text's authorship is attributed to one Antonio del Rabina, though little is known about this figure or whether he's even a historical person. Like many grimoires, it claims to have roots in the writings of King Solomon, a legendary figure often linked to magical wisdom. According to the Grand Grimoire, Antonio del Rabina wasn't actually the author of the book, but rather, he transcribed a text which was written by Solomon himself. This practice of connecting magical texts to ancient, authoritative sources was common and helped establish the book's credibility. The Grand Grimoire is divided into two main sections, each detailing specific magical practices. The first section outlines the evocation of Lucifuge Rofacal, described as a high-ranking demon serving under Lucifer himself. The text provides instructions on summoning Lucifuge and negotiating a pact, often aimed at acquiring wealth or worldly power. The second section deals with the specifics of making and sealing these demonic pacts. It explains the tools, rituals, and evocations necessary for the process, emphasizing the need for strict adherence to the outlined steps. Aside from its focus on demonology, the grimoire contains a variety of spells and rituals meant to address other desires. These include rites for love, invisibility, and communicating with the dead. Each spell typically requires specific tools, such as consecrated candles, engraved symbols, and protective circles, reflecting common elements in European occult practices of the period. These spells are presented with detailed instructions, underscoring the manuscript's emphasis on precision and ritualistic discipline. While its content draws heavily from earlier grimoires, such as the Grimoire of Pope Honorius, the Grand Grimoire gained a distinct reputation. Some have referred to it as the most dangerous grimoire, a claim rooted in its bold approach to summoning demons and securing power. Notably, unlike other grimoires which dedicate significant time to protecting the magician, the Grand Grimoire dispenses simply gets down to the business of raw acquisition of power. Its reputation as a manual for black magic has been both a source of fascination and controversy. The Catholic Church, for instance, has allegedly condemned it, and legends claim the original manuscript resides in the Vatican's secret archives. Occult practitioners today view it as both a practical guide and a historical artifact. Some believe its rituals and spells hold genuine power, while others see it as a symbolic or psychological tool. Still others view it as a dangerous tome which doesn't offer adequate protection for the high-level magic it has on offer. The Pokémon franchise has captivated millions of fans worldwide since its inception in the 1990s. Among the countless memorable aspects of the series, few have sparked as much intrigue, debate, and mystery as Lavender Town Syndrome. This is an infamous urban legend claiming that a particular piece of music in the original Pokémon games caused severe psychological and physical distress in children. Before delving into the specifics of Lavender Town Syndrome, it's essential to understand its context. Lavender Town is a location in the original Pokémon Red and Green games, released in Japan in 1996. Unlike other towns in the game, which feature upbeat music and cheerful residents, Lavender Town stands out for its eerie atmosphere. The town serves as the setting for a Pokémon graveyard, where players encounter ghostly creatures and deal with themes of loss and the afterlife. Needless to say, this was a striking and somewhat unusual tonal shift in an otherwise extremely lighthearted game. Central to the legend is the town's unsettling background music, composed by Junichi Masuda. The melody is built around haunting, dissonant tones that evoke feelings of unease. For many players, particularly children, Lavender Town became a memorable and sometimes disturbing experience. This atmosphere laid the groundwork for the urban legend that would emerge years later. The Lavender Town Syndrome myth first gained traction around 2010, fueled by the creepypasta phenomenon where horror-related urban legends are presented as factual. According to the tale, shortly after the release of Pokémon Red and Green in Japan, there was an alarming increase in severe illnesses among children aged 7 to 12. The legend attributes these incidents to the original Lavender Town music, which allegedly included high-frequency sounds detectable only by young ears. These frequencies were said to cause headaches, anxiety, depression, and, in extreme cases, the tendency to want to leave it all behind, if you catch my drift. Some versions of the story claim that Nintendo became aware of these effects and quietly altered the music for international releases. Others allege that spectrogram analyses of the original audio revealed sinister imagery, including ghostly figures and words urging the player to leave the town. Despite its chilling narrative, Lavender Town Syndrome is widely regarded as a fabrication. No credible evidence supports the claims of mass illnesses linked to the game's music. Searches of contemporary Japanese health records don't indicate any flare-ups in childhood illnesses whatsoever. Further, no official reports suggest that Nintendo altered the Lavender Town theme to address such concerns. Experts in audio and psychology have also debunked the idea that the Lavender Town music could cause harm. While certain frequencies can induce discomfort or irritation, they are unlikely to provoke severe psychological effects. Deep within the uncharted waters of the Congo River Basin lies a legendary creature that sparked fear, curiosity, and intrigue for well over a century. The Mahamba, a massive crocodilian cryptid, has long been whispered about by local tribes and explorers. Described as a giant aquatic predator capable of taking down hippos and canoes, the Mahamba straddles the line between folklore and terrifying possibility. The Mahamba is often described as a colossal crocodile creature, far larger than any known species of crocodile. While the Nile crocodile is already an imposing predator, reaching lengths of 16 to 20 feet, the Mahamba reportedly dwarfs even this apex predator. Witness accounts suggest it measures up to 50 feet long, with a serpentine body and a head that resembles both a crocodile and a snake. This hybrid description has led to speculation about whether it might be a surviving member of a prehistoric species, like the long-extinct Deinosuchus. Unlike most crocodilians, which are ambush predators relying on stealth, the Mahamba is said to be openly aggressive. The dense labyrinthine waterways of the Congo River Basin are the ideal setting for a creature like the Mahamba to remain hidden. This vast network of rivers, swamps, and forests is one of the least explored regions on Earth, with much of its biodiversity still unknown to science. The murky waters and impenetrable vegetation make it a haven for elusive animals, some of which may only emerge occasionally, evading human detection for centuries. The Congo Basin is also home to other cryptids, such as the Mokele Mbembe, a dinosaur-like creature said to inhabit its remote lakes. These cryptids share common themes. They are aquatic or semi-aquatic, massive in size, and known to attack humans or animals that encroach on their territory. The local tribes treat these creatures with a deep respect, often weaving them into their cultural beliefs and practices. The Mahamba first came to the attention of Western audiences through accounts from explorers and missionaries in the 19th and early 20th centuries. In the late 1880s, a European employee of the Congo Free State reported seeing the Mahamba himself. These stories were generally dismissed as exaggerations or misidentifications of large crocodiles. The Mahamba's legend has sparked a range of theories, from the plausible to the fantastical. On the more grounded side, some believe the Mahamba could simply be a case of mistaken identity. Giant Nile crocodiles, particularly in remote areas where they can grow to their full size, may have been exaggerated in retellings. A particularly aggressive or unusually large individual could easily inspire stories of a monstrous predator. Another explanation is that the Mahamba represents a surviving member of a prehistoric species. The idea of living fossils isn't entirely far-fetched. Animals like the coelacanth, a fish thought to have gone extinct 66 million years ago, were rediscovered in the 20th century. Given the Congo Basin's inaccessibility and biodiversity, it's not impossible that a large, previously unknown crocodilian species could exist there. More speculative theories suggest the Mahamba might not be a natural creature at all, but a supernatural being tied to local spiritual beliefs. In this interpretation, the Mahamba could be seen as a guardian of the waterways, or a symbol of nature's wrath against human encroachment. These interpretations, while non-scientific, highlight the deep cultural significance of the creature and its connection to the people who live in its supposed habitat. In Buddhist cosmology, the concept of preta, commonly known as hungry ghosts, represents beings tormented by insatiable hunger and thirst. Originating from Sanskrit, the term preta translates to departed or deceased. But within Buddhist teachings, it specifically denotes spirits suffering due to past misdeeds, particularly greed. These beings are depicted with emaciated bodies, small mouth-like structures, narrow necks, and distended bellies, symbolizing their unending cravings and the futility of their desires. The portrayal of hungry ghosts serves as a moral lesson within Buddhism, emphasizing the consequences of excessive greed, jealousy, and selfishness. By depicting the preta as beings suffering from unfulfilled desires, Buddhist teachings encourage adherents to cultivate virtues such as generosity, compassion, and detachment from desire. The concept of the hungry ghost integrated itself throughout East Asia as Buddhism spread. As Buddhism spread to China, the concept of preta was integrated into local beliefs. In Chinese Buddhism, these spirits are believed to inhabit a realm between humans and hell, suffering from extreme hunger and thirst as retribution for their past actions. The Hungry Ghost Festival, or Zhongyuan Festival, held on the 15th day of the 7th lunar month, is an event where offerings of food, incense, and money are made to appease these spirits. In Japan, the concept of preta was adopted as the gaki, maintaining the notion of spirits tormented by insatiable hunger. The Obon Festival, celebrated in mid-August, is a time when families honor their ancestors, believing that the spirits return to the world of the living during this period. While Obon primarily focuses on ancestral spirits, the influence of the gaki concept is evident in the rituals performed to ensure that all spirits, including hungry ghosts, are appeased. Monks often chant sutras and make offerings to prevent these spirits from causing harm. In Korea, the concept of hungry ghosts, known as agui, is influenced by both Buddhist and indigenous shamanistic traditions. These spirits are believed to arise from unfulfilled desires, excessive greed, or unresolved karmic debt in their past lives. Like in China and Japan, agui are depicted as tormented beings with insatiable cravings, reflecting moral lessons about the dangers of attachment and selfishness. Rituals to appease the agui are performed during Buddhist ceremonies and commonly include food offerings and prayers, as well as the burning of incense. However, the Korean conception of hungry ghosts is also influenced by shamanism, where some believe shamanistic practices can permanently alleviate the suffering of deceased relatives. Buasukan was a series of hip joint problems reported between 1982 and 1983 in the vicinity of Bua, a locality in Halland County, Sweden. The condition predominantly affected young women, who accounted for approximately 85% of the cases. The initial case, however, involved a young man in October 1982. Despite thorough medical investigations, no definitive cause was identified, and the reports eventually subsided. Those afflicted, mainly young female students, experienced hip pain, inflammation, limited mobility, and difficulties walking. School health services typically provided crutches, and in some instances, treatments like traction were administered. Generally, symptoms resolved after a period of rest without further intervention. After about 5 months, no new cases were reported. Medical professionals were unable to determine a clear medical explanation for the phenomenon. Initially, a viral infection was suspected, but extensive testing, including analyses conducted at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention in the United States, found no evidence supporting this. Some experts concluded that the illness was psychosomatic, attributing it to a mass hysteria. However, other medical experts believe that a genuine viral infection might have been present despite the lack of detectable viruses, given the observed inflammation. The idea that North Korea is a utopia is a relatively new theory that's been spreading online. I have a feeling I'll be saying this a lot during this section, but I can't tell if this one is intended to be ironic or not. Seriously, we've already covered 2 cases of brutal actions partaken in by the North Korean state in this section of the iceberg already. This theory portrays North Korea as a near-perfect society, contrary to the widespread narrative of oppression, poverty, and dictatorship. Supporters of this view point to several aspects of North Korea's self-image and the experiences shared by certain visitors as evidence of its utopian qualities. First and foremost, North Korea promotes itself as a state built on the principles of Juche, a self-reliance philosophy founded by Kim Il-sung. The government presents the country as one that is free from foreign control, where its citizens live in harmony, enjoying equal access to essential services such as healthcare and education. In this narrative, North Korea is seen as a model of socialist idealism that has successfully resisted the excesses of capitalism. The country's closed-off nature only intensifies this portrayal, as foreign media is heavily restricted, allowing the regime to control the story told to the outside world. This propaganda has significantly contributed to the myth of North Korea as a utopian state. The theory is bolstered by orchestrated displays of national unity and grandeur, such as the mass parades and performances that North Korea is famous for. These events, involving hundreds of thousands of participants, are carefully crafted spectacles designed to showcase the strength, beauty, and discipline of the nation. The artistic performances are not just for show, but serve a deeper function of legitimizing the regime. These stage performances blend art and politics, creating a convincing illusion of a disciplined and content society. To the outside observer who buys into this theory, it can seem as though North Korea has managed to cultivate an unusually strong sense of national pride and unity. Another aspect that fuels the utopian narrative is the experience of some foreign visitors. Tourists allowed into the country under highly controlled conditions often report seeing pristine streets, modern infrastructure, and well-dressed citizens. These carefully curated tours aim to project an image of prosperity and contentment, presenting North Korea as a well-ordered society free from the problems of the capitalist world. While the experiences of these visitors are artificial, they contribute to the perception of North Korea as a place that has solved many societal problems that still plague other nations. Moreover, some advocates of the North Korean utopia theory argue that the country's isolation from global economic systems has protected its citizens from the exploitation seen in capitalist societies. They assert that North Korea has developed independently and maintains a society where resources are distributed fairly and equitably, ensuring access to housing, education, and healthcare. However, the theory is not without what I would call some very glaring contradictions. Those who claim North Korea is a utopia must reconcile it with the numerous reports of human rights abuses, mass starvation, and political oppression that have emerged from defectors. Given the obvious abuses of the North Korean state, some have suggested that this theory should be taken as satirical, though as always Poe's law applies. Also, I should also mention that there is another even more extreme version of this theory, which in essence simply accepts all North Korean propaganda as true. According to this theory, North Korea is in essence a heaven on earth, while everywhere else is a capitalist hellscape. In this theory, defectors from North Korea aren't actually leaving because of poor conditions, but are North Korean patriots who leave the country on a mission to tarnish North Korea. According to this theory, these defectors exist, to make sure that the only people who arrive in North Korea are people who are smart enough to see through the propaganda. Again, it's unclear to what extent that people actually believe this theory, and once again, Poe's law very much applies. The concept of the Wiedergänger has its roots in Germanic folklore, where the dead were believed to possess the potential to return to the world of the living. These entities were not mindless zombies, but were often depicted as driven by unresolved emotions or unfinished business. The term itself comes from Middle High German, combining wieder, meaning again, and gehen, to walk, literally meaning to walk again. Unlike some representations of the undead, Wiedergänger were typically tied to a specific grievance or act of vengeance. In early Germanic pagan traditions, the boundary between the living and the dead was considered porous. The dead could influence the world of the living, and improper burial practices, unresolved disputes, or violent deaths were thought to increase the likelihood of a return. The Wiedergänger's cultural depiction evolved over centuries, reflecting the changing societal attitudes toward death, justice, and the supernatural. In the Middle Ages, these revenants often served as moral cautionary tales. The Wiedergänger was frequently associated with individuals who had committed sins or crimes, their return serving as divine punishment or retribution for unresolved moral failings. This association is evident in medieval accounts that describe revenants as monstrous and grotesque, sometimes carrying physical evidence of their manner of death. The Wiedergänger differs from other undead creatures like zombies or vampires in its motivation and actions. While zombies are often depicted as mindless and vampires as predatory and seductive, Wiedergänger are typically driven by specific personal motivations. They might seek vengeance against those who wronged them, protect something valuable, or exact justice for their untimely death. This makes them more human in their intentions, but no less terrifying in their actions. Physically, the Wiedergänger was often described as decayed and ghastly, though accounts vary. In some traditions, they retained a semblance of their former appearance, making their return even more unsettling. Also, as many of you who are longtime watchers of my channel may know, I am indeed a gamer. I first encountered the concept of the Wiedergänger in Battle Brothers, where they were responsible for wiping more than a few of my mercenary bands. Mastema is a figure in ancient Jewish literature, particularly prominent in the Book of Jubilees. His name derives from the Hebrew word meaning hatred or hostility. In these texts, Mastema is depicted as an angel or demon who carries out God's punishments, tempts humans, and tests their faith. In the Book of Jubilees, Mastema is portrayed as the leader of the Nephilim, the offspring of the fallen angels known as the Watchers and human women. When God decides to eliminate the demons after the flood, Mastema intervenes, requesting permission to retain and control a tenth of them to corrupt and lead humans astray. God grants this request, allowing Mastema to continue to test humans with his permission. Mastema's role extends to various biblical narratives, though this is by tradition rather than direct reference. He is said to have counseled God to test Abraham by commanding him to eliminate Isaac, mirroring the role of Satan in the Book of Job. Additionally, Mastema is credited with aiding the Egyptians against Moses and attempting to kill him, as well as assisting Pharaoh's magicians in opposing Moses and Aaron. In the Dead Sea Scrolls, Mastema is referred to as the angel of disaster, the father of all evil, and a flatterer of God. These texts suggest that Mastema continues to operate under God's authority, executing divine judgments and testing human faith. Notably, some have argued that Mastema may be a specific name or title of Satan, or perhaps even a separate facet of Satan acting at different times and places. The argument that Mastema is a facet of Satan stems from their overlapping roles in testing humanity, fostering enmity, and carrying out divine punishments. While Mastema and Satan are distinct figures in some texts, their functions align closely. This suggests Mastema could represent an early or alternative conceptualization of Satan, particularly in Jewish traditions. The Shah dynasty, traditionally regarded as China's first dynasty, occupies a unique and significant position in Chinese cultural history. Believed to have ruled from approximately 2070 BC to 1600 BC, the Shah is often presented as a pivotal foundational period, predating the well-documented Shang dynasty. However, the question of whether the Shah dynasty was a historical reality or a mythological construct remains a subject of ongoing debate among scholars. The Shah dynasty holds an esteemed place in traditional Chinese historiography. It's portrayed as the first hereditary dynasty in Chinese history, marking a significant transition from the semi-mythical era of sage kings to a structured and centralized state system. Ancient texts like the records of the Grand Historian by Sima Qian, written in the 2nd century BC, describe the Shah dynasty as having been founded by Yu the Great. Yu is lauded for his extraordinary engineering achievements, particularly his success in controlling the devastating floods of the Yellow River. This is a deadly natural phenomenon that profoundly influenced Chinese civilization. The Shah is credited with introducing early forms of political organization, including hereditary succession and a rudimentary bureaucracy. These elements would later underpin the governance of subsequent Chinese dynasties. Beyond its administrative role, the Shah dynasty has a profound cultural significance. Its story is imbued with values central to Chinese identity, such as filial piety, meritocracy, and harmony with nature, aligning closely with Confucian ideals. As the purported beginning of historical Chinese civilization, the Shah provides a sense of continuity, linking the mythical origins of Chinese society to historically documented dynasties. Although the Shah dynasty's historicity has been a matter of debate, certain strands of evidence lend credence to its existence as a historical reality. Among the most compelling pieces of evidence are archaeological discoveries that align with the timeline and descriptions of the Shah dynasty. The early Tu culture, discovered in Henan province and dated to approximately 1900 to 1500 BC, is frequently associated with the Shah. The remains at the Erlitou site reveal evidence of urbanization, bronze metallurgy, and social stratification, all indicative of a complex and hierarchical society consistent with an early state. Notably, archaeological continuity was observed between the Erlitou culture and the Shang dynasty, which is the first Chinese dynasty that's universally accepted by historians. The Shang appears to have emerged from a cultural and technological foundation, akin to that found at Erlitou. This continuity suggests the existence of a preceding centralized polity that bridged the gap between Neolithic cultures and the Shang dynasty. Some also argue the Shah narrative aligns with patterns of early state formation observed in other river valley civilizations, such as those in Mesopotamia and Egypt. These civilizations often developed centralized political systems as a response to environmental and economic pressures. The Shah's story fits into this broader global pattern, lending plausibility to the idea of its historicity. Additionally, some details from ancient texts, such as Yu the Great's flood control efforts, find parallels in archaeological evidence of water management systems in the Yellow River Basin. These overlaps between textual and physical evidence strengthen the argument for the Shah's existence. Despite the evidence supporting the Shah dynasty's historicity, significant challenges remain. Critics argue that the Shah is more a product of myth and political ideology than a reflection of historical reality. A key weakness in the case for the Shah's historicity is the absence of contemporary written records. Unlike the Shang dynasty, which left behind an extensive corpus of oracle bones and inscriptions, the Shah has no direct written evidence to corroborate its existence. All accounts of the Shah come from texts compiled many centuries or even millennia after its supposed era, raising serious doubts about their reliability. Furthermore, many elements of the Shah narrative bear strong mythological overtones. Yu the Great, the founder of the dynasty, is depicted as possessing superhuman abilities, particularly in his ability to tame floods through sheer determination and divine support. These qualities place him in the realm of mythical heroes rather than historical figures. The seamless transition from the legendary sage kings, such as Yao and Shun, to Yu and the Shah dynasty suggests a continuation of mythological storytelling. The political motives of later historians further cloud the Shah's historicity. The story of the Shah gained prominence during the Zhou dynasty, running from 1046 to 256 BC. This was a period when legitimizing hereditary rule was critical for the Zhou for maintaining their authority. The Zhou rulers may have retroactively constructed the Shah narrative as a precedent to justify their own rule, presenting themselves as rightful inheritors of a divinely sanctioned mandate. The records of the Grand Historian, while an invaluable historical resource, frequently blends myth with documented history, reflecting the ideological aims of its time. Even the archaeological evidence linking the Shah to the Erlitou culture is not definitive. While the Erlitou site demonstrates the characteristics of an advanced society, there's no explicit evidence tying it to a centralized Shah state. Some scholars argue that Erlitou represents an early phase of the Shang dynasty, or an independent polity unrelated to the Shah. The debate over the Shah dynasty's existence reflects broader issues in the interpretation of Chinese history. Regardless of its historical authenticity, the Shah narrative serves essential ideological and cultural functions. It acts as a foundational myth, establishing the concept of the mandate of heaven, a key political philosophy that legitimized the rise and fall of rulers based on their moral conduct. The Shah's story provides a framework for understanding the cyclical nature of Chinese dynastic rule, illustrating the consequences of virtuous and corrupt governance. In addition to its ideological significance, the Shah plays a vital role in fostering national identity. It reinforces a sense of historical continuity and cultural uniqueness, portraying China as a civilization with deep and enduring roots. In modern times, the Shah dynasty is frequently invoked as part of the 5,000 years of Chinese history narrative, emphasizing China's status as one of the world's oldest civilizations. Meme magic is a concept that attributes influence and significance to internet memes beyond their surface-level humor. The idea revolves around memes having the potential to shape reality by spreading ideas quickly and creating a sense of collective identity. Memes are more than just funny images with captions. They act as a form of digital communication that can have a real cultural impact. This concept gained traction in online communities, where memes are treated almost like digital charms that can influence events through widespread sharing and collective belief. The phenomenon of meme magic arises from the way memes leverage humor, shared cultural references, and visual appeal to create a sense of belonging among people. Memes often contain layers of meaning that resonate with specific audiences, forming an in-group language that reinforces bonds. The repetition and adaptation of memes across different contexts amplify their influence as they evolve based on cultural trends. This process makes memes seem like they're not just responding to culture but actively shaping it, which is where the concept of magic comes into play. The supposed effectiveness of meme magic lies in the emotional and psychological appeal of memes. Memes often evoke humor or provoke reactions that make them memorable and shareable. They work as a tool to simplify complex ideas into digestible, relatable content, which makes them more impactful than other forms of online communication. The rapid spread of memes and their tendency to create inside jokes contribute to a sense of community, giving people a way to connect through shared humor and experiences. In online spaces, meme magic has been linked to elements of modern mysticism, such as chaos magic, where symbols are believed to gain power through collective belief. Some theorists argue that the effectiveness and power of meme magic is suppressed by elites. They argue that powerful entities, such as governments or corporate interests, fear the influence memes have on public opinion and social movements. By controlling online platforms, these elites allegedly limit the spread of memes that could threaten their power. Peking man, a crucial discovery in the history of human evolution, was found in the Zhoukoudian cave system near Beijing during the 1920s and 1930s. These fossils, dubbed Peking man, have become one of the most significant paleoanthropological finds. The first discovery at Zhoukoudian was made in 1921, when a human tooth was unearthed by Austrian paleontologist Otto Zadansky. Further excavations revealed an array of fossils, including skull fragments, jaws, and limb bones, belonging to more than 40 individuals. These remains were eventually classified as Homo erectus pekinensis, a subspecies of Homo erectus that lived roughly between 200 and 800,000 years ago. These fossils showed that Peking man had a brain capacity smaller than modern humans, but larger than earlier hominids. The Zhoukoudian site yielded over 100,000 stone tools, evidence of fire use, and possible signs of communal living. These findings suggested that Peking man was a hunter-gatherer with the ability to adapt to the harsh conditions of northern China during the glacial periods. Despite ongoing debates, it is widely believed that these early humans had some form of social structure and were capable of controlling fire. In 1941, with the Japanese invasion of China escalating, there was a growing concern for the safety of the Peking man fossils. American and Chinese scientists decided to transport the fossils to the United States for safekeeping. They packed the fossils into 2 large crates, which were supposed to be shipped from the Marine base at Qinhuangdao to the U.S. The crates disappeared en route, and their fate has remained one of the great mysteries in the field of paleoanthropology. Multiple theories have surfaced over the years. One theory, particularly popular in China but not well known in the West, is the idea that the Peking man fossils showed humanity arose out of China rather than out of Africa. This theory generally suggests that the bones were intentionally destroyed by the Japanese or American agents to cover up this fact. One suggests that the crates were lost at sea after the ship transporting them was sunk by a submarine. Another posits that the crates were captured by Japanese soldiers and the bones either destroyed or lost in the chaos of war. Yet another theory, spurred by an account from the son of a U.S. Marine, suggests that the bones may still be buried beneath a parking lot in Qinhuangdao. The Peking man fossil's disappearance has led to a slew of investigations, with some involving official agencies like the FBI. Other investigations have taken more unconventional routes, such as employing psychics. Despite numerous expeditions and studies, the actual location of the fossils remains unknown. If you want to support my work further, please consider checking out the YouTube membership or Patreon. You can support for as little as $1 a month. The links are available in the description of this video.